Welcome to my intro video to stretching your ears. This will be the first of many videos explaining some stuff that people tend to misinterpret or, make false assumptions and whatnot. The first thing that I want to touch on is why people call plugs and tunnels gauges. Now, if you looked at any kind of size chart, I have one right here that's from Body Art Form, looks like this. You'll see that it says gauge reference card. Places that do piercings and stuff like that and sell body jewelry, like, if you don't want your jewelry called gauges, or you don't want people calling them gauges, then either find a different way to label your measurements, or stick with just millimeters and inch measurements and just leave the gauge out completely. That is like the only way that you're not gonna like get people calling them gauges. I've had loads of people say to me, like, oh, nice gauges, like, ooh, nice gauges. Now, I also don't understand why people are, like, really mean to people that say stuff like that. It's like people that say gauges when they're talking about, I don't know, plugs that are, like, this big or something like that. I'm not a jerk about it. I'll be like, no, they're not gauges, they're called this, blah, 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 I'm not a jerk about it, but there's some people that get so angry when people call them gauges, and I just don't understand why. Now, the gauge measurement, it ends at about a 00 gauge, and that is 9 millimeters to 10 millimeters, I believe. Now, that's when the gauge measurement ends. There is such thing as a 000 gauge, but I haven't seen anybody, like label their shit a 000 gauge thing or whatever. But yeah, the gauge measurement ends at 00. Now, especially with the measurement system for plugs and whatnot, a lot of people, when they call bigger plugs and stuff gauges, they don't necessarily like know that they're referred to as an inch and whatever. I mean, my ears right now are 3/4 of an inch. So right after 00, it goes to 7/16, I believe, of an inch, and that is the measurements as they go along in the scale. You know what I mean? You can find them like on Google Image or whatever of like, plug sizes and stuff like that. They go from like 20 gauge all the way up to like 2 inches or something. Now, with certain measurements, especially when you're stretching your ears, you want to use like millimeters. I find millimeters works the best when I try to when I did the tape method or whatever, when I was stretching my ears, I used the millimeters instead of like trying to figure out like inch and whatever when I was like wrapping it and stuff like that, and it just works so much easier. And like when you're trying to explain to somebody like how big your ears are, I always like somebody will come up to me and be like, oh hey, what size is your ear hole? Just randomly comes up in conversation, and I'll just be like, oh, it's 3/4 of an inch, and they'll be like, how big is that? It's like about 19-20 millimeters or whatever. So I hope that makes sense. Like, it just doesn't make sense, like, for people to get angry over that, especially piercers and tattoo artists and stuff like that. Like, I have a couple friends that are piercers that work in, like, via salon or tattoo parlors. They get really pissed when somebody says gauge, and it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, who gives a shit what you call it? Like, as long as you know what you're doing and you're doing it safely, who gives a fuck, right? But yeah, hopefully, like, I didn't ramble too much, and you kind of understood what I'm getting at. As long as you know that gauges, they end at 00, and they do, like, there's like 20 gauge, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, you know, 6, 4, 2, 0, 00, you know. There's so many different sizes within that gauge range, and that's why people call the bigger sizes gauges. Now, they're not called gauges. They're not, and it's not called gauging your ears. You're not gauging anything. That's just the measurement size, you know. When someone says, I'm gauging my ears, like, I know that they mean stretching, but that's what you're doing. You're stretching your ears. You're not gauging your ears at all. Politely explain why they're not called gauges, why they're called plug, eyelet, tunnel, like taper. You know what I mean? You use those terminology and everything's good to go, you know? And I'm all for people stretching their ears, as long as you do it safely and slowly. Stretching your ears it's not a race. Pick the size that you want to end at and then just stretch it very slowly, and your ears will be perfect and luscious, and you'll have gorgeous lobes for the rest of your life. Now, thank you for watching this. Please comment, rate, subscribe. If you have, you know, stretched ears or something, tell me your size down there, you know, because I'm a size queen, apparently. Thank you for watching and listening to me ramble about sizes and gauges and stretching and whatever, and hopefully you stay tuned for my next videos, and yeah.